Hi and welcome. My name is Tolan and I'm the co-founder of Productivity Me. In this video, we're going to look at one of the most common functions used within Microsoft Excel, that of the sum function. We'll use the sum function in order to find the totals both for quarters as well as specific regions. So if you're interested, let's get started. If you want to follow along, go ahead and open up exercise file 04.06. Of course, you can find the link to download this file in the description portion of this video. Okay, so let's get started. Now, in the last video, we went ahead and we looked at the idea of taking sales, and we have a couple different ways to calculate sales, right? So we could basically say we want to take this value and add it to this value, and add it to this value, and add it to this value. That, of course, is one valid method. We also looked at the idea of using the sum function. So if you type the word sum, you can take the individual group of values, that range. In this case, it would be the range of C3 to C6, and you could input it and it would give you the same result. So the sum function is what we're going to focus on in this video. And it's relatively simple. So if you want to type a function or a formula into Microsoft Excel, the way that you do that is you have a couple of choices. You can press the equal sign. This indicates to Microsoft Excel that you want to insert a formula. And then a function is essentially a pre-programmed formula within Microsoft Excel. And there's things like pre-programmed formulas to find the sum, to find the average, to find the product, to find the standard deviation. There's all different kinds of mathematical functions that are programmed into the application, the program of Microsoft Excel. And you can use many of these to your own benefit. So we're going to start typing the letter S, and then we're going to go U. And you'll notice that as we continue typing letters, Microsoft Excel will narrow the choices. And it's going to suggest these choices here on the bottom. And we're going to put SUM, and then you can either use your mouse to click, or you can press the tab key. Pressing the tab key will auto-select that individual item. Now, there are a couple different ways to use the sum function. The first is to click, and then as Microsoft Excel indicates, you would have your first number, and then you can have a comma. And then if it's in brackets in a description of a formula, that means it's not necessary. So you could just have the sum of one individual number. In this case, that would be that individual number. But we're going to say we want the sum of this value plus this value plus this value plus this value. We close the brackets and we press enter. However, a second way to go ahead and use the sum function would be to type in the word sum. And we can actually do this because this is a contiguous range, meaning that we want to add up all the values between this value of C3 and this value of C6. So rather than input each individual value like we did last time, we're actually just going to put a range. So here we have the sum of these four cells. And here we actually want to say that we want the sum of this range of cells. So the answer would be the same. Now, if you didn't want to type in the word sum and then select these individual ranges, there's another way to go ahead and use the sum function. Let's try that again. We're going to select these ranges, close the parentheses, and it would give us that range. Now, you could, rather than input the individual numbers by selecting them with your mouse, you could actually type them in. So you could say, I want to take the sum of this value here. This value is what, D3. So we'll type in D3, and then we'd put a colon, and then we can say, well, we want to go to this value. What is this value? This value is D6. So you can manually type in the ranges. That too would work. Now, there's a feature in Microsoft Excel called Autosum. And Autosum is a pretty cool feature where it's going to automatically sum a series of values that appear above or to the right. So if I put my cursor here in cell E7 and I want to autosum, or I want to sum these values above it, I would come up here to my home ribbon or my home tab. I would go to the editing group, and then here there's what's called a sigma, and this is autosum. And click that. Microsoft Excel will guess which values that you want to include. If those are the correct values, you press the enter key and it would autosum. Now again, you can come here, and rather than come up to your home tab, you could also go to your data tab and by data tab, I mean formula tabs, you would come here to Autosum, you click that, and again, it would bring that individual value. Now, there's also a keyboard shortcut. So you can either come here and you can go to your home tab and use Autosum, which is kind of cool. But the keyboard shortcut that you can use is the Alt key and then the equal sign. So pressing the Alt key and then the equal sign will automatically sum those values. And because there are values to the right, or I guess to the left, it will automatically presume that I want to sum the values there to my left. So we're going to hit OK. Now, one of the advantages of using a function like the sum function is you can then drag that down. So we could drag that down here. So we've used the sum function to sum these individual cells. We've summed all of these cells and we've summed all of these cells. Again, we could use something like Autosum, and it would either sum these values, which would give us 2.4 million, or if we were to say use Autosum, we could also sum these values. So if we didn't want to sum these values, but we preferred to sum this range, then you can just select the range and press enter, and that too would work. So again, in this video, we wanted to look at the idea of using the sum function, and there's a couple different ways that we use the sum function. Now, I'm just going to delete this so that we can quickly do it again. We'll say delete these. All right, so the first way that you can use the sum function is you can type it in, and then you can input individual values separated by a comma. And this is pretty useful if you wanted to sum things that aren't all next to one another. But because these values are next to one another, we can type in the sum function, and then we can just select them with our mouse. Because this is a contiguous range, Microsoft Excel will know that, and then that would insert the value. Alternately, we could type the sum function, and then we could say that we want to manually input the value of E3 through E6. And that too would give us a sum. Now, lastly, we can use the Autosum button here when we press enter, or we can use the Autosum button to sum horizontally. That too would work. We could even select these values here that we want to sum, and then if there's a cell that is blank above us, we can hit Autosum, and it would automatically populate that value. We could even select multiple values. Here we want to sum these individual ranges. If we click Autosum, it would sum below, or if we were to select these two values, we could use Autosum, and it would automatically populate that value, which would not be correct. So we might want to go to Autosum and then correctly change the values, which is another possibility. So we got Autosum. Actually, we want you to Autosum those values. So you can always correct Autosum. Then lastly, you can press the Alt key and the equals key, and that would automatically enter Autosum. So that in a nutshell is the idea of Autosum, as well as the sum function. In our next video, we'll go ahead and we'll look at the idea of the average function within Microsoft Excel. So join us for that in the next video.